Reddit, what embarrassing moments have you had in a doctor's office? Mine happened about 10 minutes ago. I arrived at my doctor's office for a routine physical, and everything was going fine. My previous conditions had all gone away, and we were wrapping up when my doctor, female by the way, I am male, told me that she was going to need to check me for an enema. She turned away for a moment to put on some gloves. As she did so, I stood up, took off my pants, and bent over. I misheard her. One does not check for an enema. One checks for a hernia. The moment she turned around, I heard, "Oh sweet Jesus, what?" And I immediately realized my mistake. I quickly turned around to see my now bright red doctor flushing over the completely unprecedented side of my anus pointed in her direction. I began to apologize profusely, and what followed can only be described as an extremely awkward check for testicular cancer, and a hasty departure on her part. Needless to say, I, too, got out of there as quickly as possible.
Silent scan.
So, I'm at the doctor, getting the ball check from my late 40s doctor, and she starts making small talk. She asks where I go to school. I say the name of my high school. She says, "Oh, my son goes there." Suddenly I realize, my doctor has the same last name as one of my best friends from school. My friend's mom is a doctor. My friend's mom is rubbing my balls. Well, extremely awkward. It was pretty funny at school the next day. "So I met your mom yesterday. She said I had very healthy balls."
Silent scan.
When I was delivering my second child, I was determined to not have a bowel movement, and did an enema to help prevent this from happening. It did clean me out, however it caused the worst gas I had ever had in my life. I had an epidural, so I couldn't really feel anything, and by the time I was ready to push, I figured the gas had passed. I let the doctor know I was ready, and he went right down there in the danger zone. He timed my contractions and let me know it was time for a good push. I pushed with all my baby delivering might and ripped the biggest, longest fart right in his face. I saw his hair literally blow back. Didn't help that he was young and attractive.
Silent scan.
Have a pilonidal cyst that I needed to go get lanced and drained, since I wasn't able to sit or wear pants due to the cyst being sensitive. Got to the doctor and he was amazed at how large the cyst had gotten, and wanted to bring in the nurses, students, interested parties to show them a prime example of this cyst. Flash forward 2 minutes, and I've assumed the position over an examining table with my pants at my ankles, and 7 to 10 people gasping and speaking in hushed voices about an egg-sized cyst right above my ass. I just found it amusing, luckily, otherwise it probably would have been mortifying. My dad told me about how when he was in college, he had to go to a dermatologist for a serious number of warts on his right foot. There were so many, and the dermatologist was so impressed by the sheer mass of them, that he asked my dad to come in a few days later, such that he could have the local medical school students come in to view him laser them off. He was amused as well, thankfully.
Silent scan.
This happened to a friend's mother. She was trying out a new OB-GYN. Post-examination, she was given a cup and directed to supply the office with a urine sample. Upon arriving at the bathroom, she saw that it had no door. Friend's mom just assumed that this new freewheeling OB-GYN office didn't have bathroom doors, and all the patients did their business in the light. So, nervously, she proceeded to collect the sample as people walked by in the hallway outside. I imagine they pretended not to notice or gave her strange looks, but it wasn't until she was leaving the bathroom that she noticed the fully retracted sliding door.
Silent scan.
I was at the doctor's office for a physical before my freshman year of college. The doctor was this assertive and intimidating female, and it came time for the hernia check. Now, for my whole life this procedure involved the doctor cupping a testicle and asking me to cough. However, I guess they only need to feel just above the genitals, where my ovaries would be if I was female these days, but I was not aware. So I am sitting on the exam table, and the doctor asked me to unbutton my pants for the hernia exam. I was ignorant that they didn't need to come down. Then she turned away to go get a glove. At this point, I pulled my pants down to my knees. She walks over with a perfect poker face, and calmly places her hand on my lower stomach, and asks me to cough. She checked both sides twice, the entire time with my genitals needlessly exposed. As a surgeon who's done these exams routinely, she did it wrong, not uncommon with a few primary care doctors. A real exam does require you to expose your genitals, so the doctor can feel where your spermatic cord leaves your abdomen. So what you did was right.
Silent scan.
I did kind of the opposite of this not long ago. Went to a doctor's because one of my testicles had inflated quite painfully. Once I was laying on the bed, I undid my trousers, ready for what I knew was coming, but didn't pull them down yet. So the doctor asks me to slide them down, obviously referring to my trousers and underwear, but I mentally couldn't get my junk out for a doctor, so instead I just slithered down the bed. The doctor said, once again with a bit of irritation, "Slide them down please." By this point I knew what he meant, but I continued sliding down the bed trying to avoid the inevitable. This happened about 3 times until I nearly fell off the bed, and the doctor had to physically hold me and ask once more. Sort of awkward, but hey, I didn't die, so it's all good.
Silent scan.
When I was studying to become a dentist, I was following a doctor in there a couple of weekends as part of my education in general medicine. Well, one late Saturday a young girl, around 18 I think, comes in with her parents because of severe stomach pains. The doctor asks a few questions and then asks the girl to take off her pants and lay down on her side. The doc then puts on a glove and shoves a finger up the girl's ass. I had seen this before, standard procedure, but never with a cute girl as the receiver. So I was already a bit embarrassed when the father turns to me and asks me how many years I've got left until I'm a doctor. Well, I'm actually studying to become a dentist. Really made me feel I was at the wrong end of things. To answer a few questions. If I remember correctly, the girl was constipated. Finger in the ass to check for blood in your intestines to rule out internal bleeding. She was anxious, her parents followed her because of that. The father sat at the patient's head to calm her down. The doc was a woman. I promptly left the room when the father shot me a weird look after telling him I was studying to become a dentist, couldn't handle the awkwardness. Sadly, I had no pizza. I just came here to deliver a pizza. I just imagine a guy who just carries a cold pizza around with him pretending to be a delivery guy. Just so he can witness obscure events in everyday life.
Silent scan.
I went to the hospital when I was a teenager and my doctor was rather attractive. She had to check me for testicular cancer. The room was curtained off and my parents were waiting right on the other side, in earshot. She was looking away when I pulled my pants down and she said, "Oh my God," in an annoyed voice when she turned to find my junk out. I thought I had done something wrong and said sorry. As it turned out, my pork and beans hadn't been what had annoyed her, it was that her beeper had gone off. I guess she had been extremely busy. The story isn't too embarrassing at face value, until you realize my parents could hear but not see this short exchange. I don't want to imagine what they thought caused a pubescent teenager to have to apologize to a hot doctor examining his testicles.
Silent scan.
Second child on the way, my wife wakes up with contractions. Happens to be the same day that she had a scheduled appointment with the doctor to check progress, so we just kept that appointment. We meet the female doctor in the clinic, across the parking lot from the hospital. I'm in the exam room, doctor is checking my wife, who's up in stirrups. "Oh, yeah, you're pretty dilated and effaced, today is definitely the day." I'm sitting nearby, politely averting my gaze, when the doctor says, "Your bag of water is bulging, too, I bet I could My wife starts laughing nervously. I look up to see the doctor, 2 fingers deep in my extremely pregnant wife, trying desperately to prevent the now broken water from flooding the exam room. She stretches to reach a bottom drawer, and some amniotic fluid kind of sprays out in odd directions. The doctor has me get some absorbent pads out of the drawer and lay them down before removing her fingers and jumping out of the way.
Silent scan.
A while back in high school I had to get surgery on my scrotum. I had this condition with some fairly scientific name, that basically means a clump of veins in one of my testicles was restricting the flow of my mighty swimmers. Well, I of course had to go to a pre-checkup with the doctor. I also didn't have a driver's license, so my dad drove me there. I meet the doctor and he gets straight to business. He pulls out a large ring with wooden balls of different sizes, and says my balls have to be measured for disparity to see how serious this is. He then looks to my dad and says, "If you want to step out you can at this time." Hahaha, no. I think I'm good right here. My dad decided to make my penis surgery just that much more exciting. So a minute later there I stand, Curious George out in the open, while my doctor is face level with the beast putting balls next to my testicle and comparing. The entire time my dad watches and laughs. And I shudder.
Silent scan.
When I was a kid, like 8 or 9, I had to get a routine physical to participate in sports at school. My dad took me. Everything went great until the doctor told my dad he needed to get a urine sample. My dad hands me the cup and tells me to go to the bathroom in the cup and bring it back to him. I, being a bit naive, did not know what urine was, so I went into the bathroom and promptly shit in the cup. My dad was waiting for me near the front desk of the doctor's office, since we were leaving after turning in the cup. I proudly walked up, handed the cup to my dad and said, "Is this enough or should I go back and scoop up some more from the bowl?" The nurse at the desk looks up and nearly spit her coffee all over my dad. He set the cup on the desk and said, "We are leaving now." I didn't understand what was wrong until that night when my mom came in to explain my mistake.
Silent scan.
Had a routine smear pap test as a student. I hadn't slept the night before as I'd been partying hard and was still not quite with it. The male doctor hadn't performed a smear before and for some reason a nurse was called in to witness the procedure. Predictably the doc had trouble finding my cervix, and the nurse told me to roll my hips up. The doctor was getting more and more nervy, so to break the ice I started singing, "Rolling, rolling, rolling, keep those doggies movin', rawhide." It made sense at the time. Then I started to laugh uncontrollably at my own joke, which caused the speculum to shoot out of my hoo-ha and knock his glasses off. The lab results were inconclusive.
Silent scan.
Happened to my dad. In fact, he told this story again yesterday. He was going in for a vasectomy after I was conceived. Just made it. They shoot him with the numbing medication, and the doctor didn't wait long enough for it to take full effect. Did the first pinch and snip, and the pain was so bad that he puked on the nurse in the room. The doctor decided to wait 10 minutes until he did the other one. Since this doctor wasn't high regular physician, he told him that if he saw him out in a bar, that he would beat the fuck out of him. TLDR, my dad got his testicles snipped before it was numb, so he puked on a nurse.
Silent scan.
While the doctor was shaving my balls just before a vasectomy, we realized we had grown up together and now live in the same neighborhood. It was awkward, but I couldn't resist asking. So, did you dream about shaving my balls for money while we were growing up?
Silent scan.